So I'm doing a follow-up on the molding issues that I'm seeing in Age of Annihilation because I got some good questions after posting my last one. The first thing that I saw here was that people were asking about connections on the other sides. So by far, this orientation here, where you've got the square formation attached along the long edge here, causes the most stress, and that's because you've got a ton of concave angles here where it's having to connect to the other piece, and there's just not enough room to give, and so the plastic has to deform to get out of the way. So that's what I showed in my video earlier today. The other sides though, this side right here is the second worst, although as you can see that kind of went in a lot quicker there. And that comes apart pretty easily. So this side right here is not as bad. It does still have, I would say this is like the jagged edge, so it does still have some concave angles. But it's not as bad. And then the straight edge here, so this one right here, that one in my opinion, like that's totally acceptable. If all the pieces and all the angles connected like this edge right here, that'd be totally fine. So the inconsistency between the different edge connections, in my opinion, kind of leans more towards being a manufacturing, or rather a design defect in the actual notches on this side of the piece and partially on this side, but not as extreme. Now, again, I could be wrong, and later evidence that we'll look at here kind of suggests that it might be a factory issue, or it could be both, and that might be what we're experiencing on this edge here, is the culmination of both of these issues. So just wanted to revisit that so that people could see the other sides for the 24 hex. The next question that I got from people was obviously they wanted to see the other sizes of the Age of Annihilation hexes. So this right here is 1 hexes. And I don't know how well this is showing up, but these ones look fine, honestly. You do see some like deformation there, but that's more just like the cooling of the piece, the shaping of the mold, anything like that can cause that kind of stuff. The main thing that we're looking for is where specifically, like deformation, specifically where these joints touch each other. So things like this and things on the inside here are not really relevant to our discussion, as well as seam lines along the edge. So let me see if I can find an example of this. Like that right there. It's very hard to see, and it's not really focusing, but that right there is just a seam line for where the plastic like was on the edge of the mold, and that like discoloration is normal. That's not what we're talking about. The type of stuff that we're looking for is like I was showing earlier in the other video. There's one. This is like the best example I can see of it, where all along this edge here, you can see that the inside wall of this piece here is deforming. Wow. Is deforming to make room for that notch there. So that's the kind of damage that we're looking for. And one thing that I don't think I highlighted enough in the earlier video is that that is damage. So while it's not a complete fracture to the point where the piece is broken in two, it is still damage. And so the fact that these pieces are being damaged from normal use right out of the box, in my opinion, is what's unacceptable. So all that to say, returning to the 1 hexes here, these are totally fine. These come apart normally like you would expect when you pick them up. So 1 hexes are fine. 2 hexes, I did notice a little bit of what I would say is plastic deformation right on the notches there. And some of that like right there, right there. Some of these are seam lines like that right there. Since it's not even pushed up against that inner edge there, we know that that's not a stress, a plastic deformation strain. But we do see a little bit of that on a couple points like there. So the 2 hexes, and these still come apart easily enough. In my opinion, this is an acceptable level of stiffness when connecting these, and these will probably get broken in over time. That's totally normal in my opinion. Again, the 3 hexes, totally fine. And as you can see, the edges on these notches are very sharp, very defined. From what I've heard, that they had access to all the original molds for 7 hexes and lower, and 24 hex was the only one that they made from scratch, basically, since Hasbro still had all the original molds. And that would make sense with what I'm seeing here, and the reason that I highlighted only the 24 hex in the last video is because I didn't really see these as too relevant. So you see that these come apart really easily. I can do that one-handed, no problem. So 1 through 3 hexes, with 2 hexes having a little bit of extra potential for deformation, but nothing really worth, you know, getting up in arms about, in my opinion. The 7 hexes is where things got weird, because when I have them connected in an orientation like this, you can see that you do actually get a lot of deformation. So like that there, you can see it all over again right on the corners here. So it's pretty consistent all the way across, and this is what we're looking for, is this consistent level of deformation, which tells us that there is a problem with either the tolerances or the mold itself, like the design coming from Renegade. So these ones do have issues with that, it seems, and do not come apart as easily. And part of this is also just because the larger pieces have more edges that are, you know, connected to other pieces. So there's less give for these parts to you know, come apart. There's more friction there. But I think also what part of this is new pieces not being broken in, which is what other people were talking about. And the fact that the tolerances at the factory might not be as good as the originals. And I'll just compare that here to these 7 hexes from Rise of the Valkyrie. So again, these are 20 years old. These are my used ones that I've been using for years now. And when I lift this up, you can see that they all separate, no problem. If I try to do that on these ones right here, that's never gonna happen. So these are far too tight. And now we'll take a look at the underside of the Rise of the Valkyrie hexes, since that's another thing people were asking about, is what does the underside of the other, you know, smaller Rise of the Valkyrie hexes look like. As you can see here, the tolerances are perfect in my opinion. You can see even gaps all the way across. There's nice spacing in between. The edges are sharp. There's no stress lines. Again, we do see some like normal wear from being, you know, slid across tables, nicked on edges. Since these are sharp edges, it's easy for those to get nicked and stuff, like that right there. But just remember, the things that we're looking for are consistent marks on like multiple sides all the way across where the notches meet. So that's the kind of stresses that you're looking for. So these don't have any of that, and as I showed you, they come apart super easily. I mean, they feel perfect. So the last connection that people wanted me to test was using old Heroscape with the new Age of Annihilation stuff. So let me get these 24 hexes apart. Oh, there goes the camera. We'll keep it going. Anyways, trying to do this without screwing everything up. So let's press these in, and these still do have to fight against the Age of Annihilation 24 hexes, so it's not like they're immune, even with old stuff. So let's connect them like this. And this is what I was saying. You can see that these pieces got pulled apart because each of these 24 hexes is pulling it in the opposite direction because it doesn't have the tolerances needed. And so it causes slight deformation. Let me see if there's any. Yeah, so you can kind of see that, well, not too well, but these are slightly elevated, just so slightly, and it's not really coming up on camera. You can hear that noise is because they're slightly elevated. So let's look at the underside here. And this is what you'll see. This right here, I mean, look at the Age of Annihilation notch compared to the original notch, and this is just so sloppy. I mean, it's too thick. You can even see the stress on the inside there where it's a lighter color because the plastic has been deformed. This right here, this connection to me just really highlights how sloppy the tolerances or the design of the new molds are. And the reason that I harp on this is if this was a $60 product, I wouldn't care at all. The problem is that I paid, $230 for the premium painted edition, but even the cheapest version of the master set is still going to run you $130. By no means is that like a toy market or like just a pick up and play type market. Even the battle box is $65, which you still get 2 of these 24 hexes in, so it's going to be a major problem when building maps in the battle box as well. And so unlike the original Heroscape, like Rise of the Valkyrie, where it was marketed, in the toy aisle or the board game aisle at Target or whatever, marketed to children, priced for children, it was like, I think it was like $60 adjusted for inflation, $40 back then. Obviously, Rise of the Valkyrie is a horrible comparison because it was a loss leader and we know all that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is that the price that they're charging for Heroscape now is a premium. And so I expect no portion of the product to be of lesser quality than the original Heroscape. And unfortunately, that is definitely not the case with these hexes. So it seems specifically it's exacerbated on this long edge of the 24 hexes, and then the connections on these 7 hexes are showing some of that problem as well. So that's all. This one went a little bit longer, but I wanted to show a good example of multiple issues so that people can make their own decision about if this is worth it to them. In my opinion, especially the 24 hexes is not worth it. And what I was highlighting earlier is that what it could be is that along this edge, there is some issue with the mold or the model itself specifically, but it could also be the tolerances combined with a slight design flaw that is causing this to be exacerbated here on the 24 hex. Whereas right here, since we know that this is we can presume this is the original design because the hexes there look exactly the same as the originals, that this is more just a tolerance issue. And so these kind of things, while not great, I think those will break in over time. And maybe as they get further in the manufacturing process, they improve the tolerances, they improve their production know-how, that might get better. This right here, it seems like it probably needs a little bit more help. So that's just wanted to highlight that and share a little bit of insight to what I'm seeing in mine.